All right. Shalom, 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 y'all. Shalom. It is Michael Israel, and you are watching Spiritual Combat. And this is Weekly Wellness with Michael Israel. So I renamed it a little bit. Um, we definitely have an awesome show for you today. And what we're going to be talking about, let me check my audio. Let's see how I sound. And what we're going to be talking about, let me check my audio. It sounds great. So, what we're going to be talking about is, you know, if you've been watching the news, there's a lot of uh, I got to think of how to say everything so I don't get, bit on anything. I don't think I will with what I'm gonna be talking about, but there are viruses going around out there and everything like that, different ones, and what we're gonna talk about on today's show is we're gonna talk about viruses, what they are, in simplistic terms, and we're also going to talk about how to combat them, and inevitably, of course, it's going to take us into a discussion about protein. Okay, protein, to which there's a lot of, I think, bad information and misinformation about. Okay, so we're gonna get into this. It's gonna be a good show. Um, I think you're gonna get a lot out of it, and I want to remind y'all, uh, this it'll be this week. Well, I'm sorry, it'll be not this Friday, next Friday, at the feast. Those saints who are going to be there in attendance on Friday at 1 p.m. I will be having my diet, health, and wellness. I think that's what I'm calling the class: diet, health, and wellness, and herb class or whatever. Um, and you're encouraged to attend if you are there at the feast. I'll probably be live streaming it too. I gotta see. Uh, but and when I do those classes, no, it's normally a lot of question and answers. That a lot of times that ends up being the bulk of the class. Um, Although I haven't been doing a lot of weekly wellness classes, nor have I been. Hold on, yo. Okay. Nor have I been do. I haven't been doing a lot of Hebrew health classes either. I have been studying, I have been progressing in my in understanding on things, and I have been diligent with things that we're working on here behind the scenes, to uh, let me make sure I word this correctly, to aggre- aggressively eradicate, combat, defeat, um, certain illnesses and stuff like that, popular ones. We I talked about before, like talked about like stuff like herpes, HIV, stuff like that, major things like that, which the discussion we're going to have ties right into to that, because that's still based on protein and everything like that. But of course, our antiviral tincture is still very aggressive in combating um, the plague that has went around the world, you could say, that went around the world in 2020. So it is absolutely effective on that. Um, and yeah, so but we have other things that we're working on. Um, Let me pull this up real quick. Okay. So, uh, we let's go ahead and get into our discussion on proteins and stuff like that and on viruses. So, a virus, what is a virus? And I'm going according to medical academia. I know people have theories on um, and there's other theories on viruses and what they are and stuff like that. I've seen them out there. I'm The reason why I'm just telling you the established medical breakdown of viruses is because from my experience, and when I say my experience, I'm talking about in my interactions, not just reading stuff, but actually, um, you know, implementing my formulas and stuff like that, formulating herbal tinctures and stuff like that, and seeing the results I get. And based off of the medical information I formulated the tinctures off, and then their effectiveness against a lot of these viruses and stuff like that, that's what I base my experience on. So that's how, the Bible says, prove all things and hold fast to that which is true. So I test it and then I see what I get. Um, but let's talk about, so what is a virus? It is basically it's RNA or DNA, and it's wrapped with a layer of protein. Okay, and that layer of protein is designed to protect it and also to trick cells in your body into letting that virus in. Okay, and once it's in the cell, that RNA DNA that's in that virus uses your cell to replicate more viruses. So to create more of the DNA, RNA, and to wrap it with the protein layer. And so it turns the cell into a replication factory and it begins taking over your cells. The sickness that you get with kind of, you could say, the virus that shall not be mentioned on here. So the accompanying sickness, where the headache, the body aches, the runny nose, and whatever the symptoms might be, is your body's response. Tiredness also, but it's your body's response to, uh, or your body's detoxification mechanisms going into action, eliminating and combating and eliminating any cell that's infected with the virus. Okay. So, and in a nutshell, okay, I'm sure people are like, oh, well, you left out this, that, and other. I'm giving y'all a real basic uh, breakdown of it. Now, what we talked about is protein. Okay. Um, you know, if you hear me talk, the diet that we um, in our assembly here, the diet that we are on is a high plant-based diet. That's what I would call it. Uh, do we consume meat and dairy, stuff like that? Yes, but we try to do it sparingly. What do I mean sparingly? Uh, Typically, like maybe 3 days out of the week or something like that, we're having meals with protein in it. And because, or when I say protein, what people regard as protein, so meat, dairy, stuff like that. But we've reduced it because you want to do that sparingly. Um, but we are on a high plant based diet, and at times we go on all plant based diet. There was a whole month we went nothing but plant based. In fact, it was nothing but fruit. And but understand what I mean when I say fruit. Like for instance, we had spaghetti, um, but we didn't have regular spaghetti. We had spaghetti squash as the spaghetti, and then the spaghetti sauce. And when you, according to definition, tomatoes are fruit, and squash is a fruit. It's the fruit produced by the plant. Okay, um, or it's the reproductive organ, or the what the plant reproduces. You know what I'm saying? But but that's what we had. Okay, we had meals like that for a month, just cleansing the body and everything like that. Um, but going back to the protein, so I broke down what a virus was. Um, a person who consumes a high protein diet is going to be more susceptible to these types of infections and stuff like that, viruses. Why? Why is that so? Why? What would make them more susceptible to it? Well, the equivalent of, like, a lot of people, they're like, man, if you want to get big, if you want to gain muscle, you got to consume a lot of protein and protein this, and you got to have protein in your diet. And I was just listening to something right before this show, and this doctor, he was giving a lecture, and he was saying there has never been a recorded case of low protein in a person, like protein deficient. There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. Okay. There's misinformation out there when it comes to protein. Um, our body, when we all's proteins, all's a protein is simply uh, amino acids, um, a long chain of amino acids. That's all it is. And if it's over a certain length, they name it protein. But make no mistake, it's amino acids. And what your body has to do when you consume these proteins, it has to break them down, or we could call it these long chains of amino acid. Your body has to take it, break it down into basic um, amino acids. Okay, so it has to take it, break it down into basic amino acids, and then it reassembles them into longer chains according to what it needs, the way it needs it. But the proteins we take in from meat, dairy, there's actually, and there's some vegetables, or there's some plant-based things, even your grains, they have some long chain proteins or whatever. It what we take in, your body has to break those down, and that process is an acidic process. In order to chop those long chains up, it produces waste. Okay, it produces antioxidants and other toxemia in your body. Just the process of breaking that down into what it needs it to be. It doesn't use all we typically, especially if we're on a typical diet where some people they're having a bunch of protein or meat and dairy for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. Like they are overwhelmed with it. Okay. And what happens, the proteins that your body doesn't have to take and break down and utilize, it sends all that to the kidneys. And that is a very acidic process. If you show me somebody with a kidney issue, I'm going to show you somebody who consumes a lot of meat, a lot of dairy, and a lot of grain. Okay? And when I say grain, I'm talking about flour, sugar, rice, you name it. Okay? And, and like I said, we're not going down the whole sugar thing because that's a whole nother thing. We might hit on it a little bit later. But so anyway, so that's what happens. So you have all this toxemia, whatever the name you want to call it, in the system with all these proteins you got in your system. Your immune system is working overtime. It's trying to, sort through everything. And with all that traffic going on in your body, now a virus gets in there, and it's going to be harder for your immune system or your lymphatic system, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be harder for your body's sewage and waste detection system to find it because it's busy dealing with all this other stuff. So that's a very basic breakdown of the protein thing. Now, you heard what I said. There's no such thing as somebody who's protein deficient. Again, what I said is proteins are broken down into their amino acids that make them up, or that they are, to the basic amino acids. They're not chained together; they're unchained, and then they're again reassembled into the proteins that the body needs. So it's an energy consuming process. Okay, whereas when you consume fruit and when you consume vegetables, they are in their amino acid form. There's no breakdown required. The body utilizes them accordingly. So that's the difference. That's one of the big differences. Also talking about sugars. I told you we're going to get in that brief. Typical carbs, we'll call them non-fruit carbs. We'll talk about grains, flour, stuff like that. Your body converts or like the modern day flour converts into sugar, or let's say it a better way. Modern day flour will spike your blood glucose quicker than table sugar. Okay. And with the sugar, I could go into a whole bunch of problems with the sugar and how it affects you, and that's the refined sugars and the sugars and grains. Okay. But one of the things is we're consuming so much of these sugars, and it overwhelms the liver. It can cause fatty liver disease, stuff like that. And all the excess sugar gets converted into fat. That's why we have you see the obesity epidemic. Starches too, to a degree, because another thing, like instead of having the grains, we substitute with certain starchy type fruits and vegetables like cassava, plantain, stuff like that. You can like almond flour, stuff like that. The sisters here, I'll be honest, like they use these substitutes, man. They make cakes, cookies, you name it, that are better than the grain versions, hands down. Like brownies, you name it. I mean, it's just mind blowing how good this stuff is. Now, it will still put weight on you, but it doesn't. It's not unhealthy like the grains. Now, let me tell you about something about grains. Is the proteins. The proteins in grains can't be broken down. Okay, the proteins in the grains can't be broken down, and some of the proteins in grains look so similar to the proteins in our bodies that our sometimes they get in our system, and I'll explain how they actually get into your system. But they get into your system, and they will, because they look so similar to the proteins the body makes, certain systems on the body will utilize them, and your immune system or lymphatic system will react to it and detect that there's a fake protein in there and begin going after it. And what they call this type of disease is autoimmune disease. I'm sure y'all have heard of that. And that's what it is, because to them, they're like, oh, the immune system's attacking the body, and we don't know why. Well, it's because you got these fake proteins that have been able to get into the body through digestion. They've been able to get in there, and they're in the system. And when they go to a certain organ or whatever, the organ like, oh, okay, this is one of the proteins I need. Takes it, uses it, but it doesn't behave correctly, and the body is trying to eradicate it. Now, how does that fake protein make it in to the body? Well, there is and I did a show on this a while back, but there is a protein in like grain. Each one has one, but it's called Zeon. And basically, I think that's what it's called. And what it does, it causes, when it touches your gut lining, it causes the wall to loosen so the protein can be absorbed into the body. Okay? And like I said, these proteins are in the grains. And if just your genetic makeup, like, you have some people tall, some people short, some people are thin, some people are kind of thick or whatever. Well, it's the same thing with your different organs or whatever in your body. If you say you don't particularly have a super tough gut lining and you begin consuming these grains, again, they're going to loosen up your gut, cause you to have, I think they call it leaky gut. Now, I'm not sure if that's exactly what the cause of that is fully, but they do cause your gut to become permeable. But they cause it to these foreign proteins and stuff like that to be able to get absorbed into the body, and they wreak havoc. Okay, they cause a myriad of things. There's also a what's it called? What's that? There's a I forget what it's called, but we'll just call it a substance since I don't remember exactly what the term's called. But it's a gliadin or it's called wheat germ agglutinin, And when that's absorbed in, it binds to the opioid receptor in your brain. It causes you to not be satiated. Okay? It causes you to eat more and more and continue to be hungry. This is why a lot of these food makers, they make sure they understand how addictive these grains can be, and they know about that wheat germ or gluten. The fact that it binds to the opioid receptor causes you to crave more and not be satiated. See, one of the amazing things that happens when you eliminate the grains in particular out of your diet is the fact that your appetite goes down. You're not craving as much food. So like I used to eat 3 meals a day plus maybe some snacks or something. Now I eat 1 meal a day and maybe I'll have a snack. Well, and I will have a snack. I have like a small snack in the morning. It might be fruit or some cashews or something. And then at night, I might have some fruit or something like that. Okay. Now, sometimes on the weekends, I'll have 2 meals a day. But man, if I have 2 meals in a day, I know I can feel it. Like I was like, man, I am not hungry. You know what I'm saying? So these are just going over some of the reasons why we do what we do. Excuse me. But yeah, that I just wanted to go over. Those are some of the things I just wanted to go over. Um, these are some of the things you can do. You can keep in mind to stay healthy. As you know, I think the flu season or whatever season is coming around again. I know when I look on the news, I see a lot of stuff going on. People getting bit by mosquitoes and getting viruses and becoming paralyzed. And our bodies are fearfully and wonderfully made. If we burn the correct fuel, they will run correctly. When your diet is incorrect and is not balanced correctly, it's like trying to run a diesel engine on gasoline or a gasoline engine on diesel or on some type of fuel that doesn't belong in that engine. But when you run the engine, when you put the correct fuel in the engine runs correctly. It's as they say in the automotive world, it's running lean and mean. You got a nice and you adjusted the fuel mixture correctly, adjusting the fuel mixture correctly, making sure it's getting just enough fuel, not too much, not too little. That's not overeating, not eating too much. You know what I'm saying? That's another big thing. So, but yeah, that's what I wanted to come in and talk about. For those of you who will be attending the Feast of Tabernacles, I will be doing a class. It's going to be more of a question and answer. I'm going to probably talk about a couple things and then turn it over to questions and answers because people have a ton of questions every feast. And so my diet, health, and wellness class at the Feast of Tabernacles will be Friday at 1 p.m. in the tabernacle, and I'll probably live stream it, but I'm not going to guarantee that. So, but anyway, that's what I wanted to come on here and talk about. Definitely appreciate all y'all tuning in. And you are watching Weekly Wellness with Michael Israel. Appreciate y'all tuning in. And shalom.